This is TWiT.
There is another world where some really weird things are happening, and that's the office world. Not like the place that we go to work, but the office suite world with OnlyOffice, and it's OnlyOffice and Nextcloud, isn't it?
Well,
or OwnCloud. No, it's
EuroOffice, OnlyOffice, Nextcloud, LibreOffice, and CollaboraOffice.
Oh, all of them are involved. Just all the buzzwords. All right, walk us through this. Tell us what's going on. I don't even know the full story here. I just know parts of it.
Well, we have about 3 things going on. So, normally when we talk about things which cause a controversy, we're not talking about an office suite. GNOME versus KDE, Emacs versus Vim, Ubuntu versus Arch, whatever, But when you talk about an office suite, that's normally the boring part, unless they come out with a new feature that everybody's waiting for. I can highlight in rainbows or whatever it is. Well, not so this week. So a new web-based office suite called EuroOffice was recently introduced by a group of European companies, including Nextcloud and IonOS. Their goal is to offer a collaborative document editing platform that supports Europe's digital independence. A technical preview is already available, and the first full release is planned for the summer of 2026. EuroOffice is built on the open source code base of OnlyOffice, which is distributed under the AGPL version 3, a license that allows anyone to use, modify, and share the software as long as they follow the license terms. But almost immediately after EuroOffice was announced, OnlyOffice accused the new project of violating those terms. Now, OnlyOffice says that its version of the software includes additional rules, especially around branding, credit, and license notices. According to OnlyOffice, these requirements must remain intact whenever the software is shared or modified. The company claims that EuroOffice removed or ignored some of these conditions, and doing so breaks the license and ends EuroOffice's right to redistribute the software. EuroOffice disagrees. Its position is that some of the OnlyOffice extra conditions cannot legally be enforced if they conflict the AGPL version 3 itself. The heart of the dispute is whether OnlyOffice's added rules are valid, the additional terms under the license, or the valid terms go beyond, or the additional terms go beyond what the AGPL allows. If they go too far, EuroOffice argues, then a project like theirs is permitted to remove them. So in the first link in the show notes, EuroOffice goes into details of why they say they can't work with OnlyOffice. One of the points they make is that OnlyOffice is a Russian company, and there are quite a few number of binary blobs and compiled or obfuscated code blobs. So the very bottom line summary is a lot of users and customers require software that is not potentially influenced or controlled by the Russian government. Now, because of this disagreement, between the two organizations, OnlyOffice has suspended its 8-year-old partnership with Nextcloud, because like I said, Nextcloud's helped start EuroOffice, citing license violations after the EuroOffice coalition forked the OnlyOffice repo. The partnership between both platforms allowed Nextcloud users to edit and collaborate on Office documents right inside their own instance, which made it a big deal for self-hosters. OnlyOffice was favored over LibreOffice / Collabora because of its native Microsoft Office format compatibility. DocX, XLSX, PP PowerPoint, the PPTX, and superior browser performance. Now, that's from one of the articles linked in the show notes, but I should say LibreOffice does support the Microsoft document standard, or to the best ability, because even Microsoft says, they publish standards, but they don't publish it all. They keep some of the standards in their back pocket. Now, I don't have the room in this story, but I should also mention the Document Foundation, TDF, their membership committee has decided to eject from membership all Collabora staff and partners. That includes over 30 people who have contributed faithfully to LibreOffice for many years. without going into the details and the political intrigue, Collabora is going to create a new and cut down version of their Office suite. And when I say that, politics and intrigue, there's a lot of thoughts, though the article I read might be biased, that they're putting too many people who have no technical skills in charge, and a bunch of other we'll call it shenanigans. But that was just one article. It could be very biased. But there will be a Collabora Office Classic and a new Collabora Office. So you're keeping both versions. The new version is going to be entirely new, cut down, a version for users that want a smoother, more friendly, and less feature-dense product than their classic product. Now, from Collabora, they say, this gives a chance to innovate faster in a separate place on a smaller, more focused code base with fewer build configurations and much less latency. No Java, no database, and it's just web-based toolkit and more. So now, since this article is getting a little long, take a look at all the links I have in the show notes for many more details. And each of the articles has links in them as well. So there's a lot, a megaton of information and details I've left out. But maybe going forward, I'll need to be looking at using EuroOffice or Collabora's new Office for my future needs. Who knew that some of the more boring aspects of software would suddenly become one of the largest controversies in open source in multiple locations at all about the same time? Who knew? We'll let everybody know more when we know more about how this is all going to shake out.
Interesting. So you've got the Document Foundation and Collabora are feuding, apparently over... Oh, you have to read between the lines here to figure this out. But Document Foundation's post suggests that things Collabora was doing could have led to the Document Foundation losing its nonprofit status, and then also that employees of companies involved in legal disputes with the Document Foundation must be removed from TDF membership, which seems pretty reasonable to me. And then I'm sure Collabora, let's kick the developers out is their spin on it. Yeah. And then OnlyOffice and EuroOffice are fighting. So there's one thing, putting all of the immediate mess aside, there's one thing that's really interesting here, like from a licensing standpoint. And that's that question about adding additional licensing terms to open source licenses like the AGPL. This is something I've wondered about with Red Hat before, because if you read the GPL, it's got things in there about you do not get to add additional license restrictions. And I've looked at what Red Hat does with its, I forget what they call it, terms of service or whatever. And it's like, some of these really seem to me like they're additional licensing restrictions. It would be very interesting to see that question go to court and what would become of it. That would potentially change the open source landscape a bit.
Yeah, and that was mentioned in one of the articles, that it really kind of brings to a head of like, well, how far can you push this, license? When does it stop? There was a lot more reasons why they, EuroOffice said they couldn't work with OpenOffice. It's kind of a closed ecosystem, and Europe is very against because it's very Russia based, but there is also some other restrictions in there of how how things are done, and how it's kind of, like I said, they've got various code blobs, binary blobs in there that nobody knows what they do. And
the Russia based in the code blobs, that's OnlyOffice.
Yes.
Not OpenOffice, not LibreOffice. Let's make sure we get those, keep those straight.
No, it's it's the code blobs and everything are only in OnlyOffice. EuroOffice did not like that, so that's why they forked it, and we're now having this license disagreement. And at the same time, Collabora and LibreOffice looks like splitting ways. And there's a fight between the Document Foundation and Collabora. But, it'd be interesting to see how that's going to fall, because Collabora has done a lot of code for LibreOffice. So, yeah.
And then you also have one more layer to this. If you go to the Document Foundation's blog, they have an article here. So the Document Foundation, the people behind LibreOffice, have a blog post about EuroOffice and basically ragging on them for using Microsoft formats by default instead of something like ODF, which makes sense to me.
Well, and they say in there, it's not a ideological. It's kind of what the standard is globally, and they do support it's like LibreOffice. They support the open document format by default, but they also support the Microsoft versions as well, because that's what a huge chunk of the world uses. It's kind of the de facto standard for most things. The PowerPoint, Excel, and Word. It's what it is. So it's either, so they make a special point. It's not ideological. It's like, we're just supporting the most common standard, but we do support all the open ones as well. And then you look at it like, should you ideologically support that open standard no matter what and kind of make people choose the other format? Or do you just say, well, here's the easiest for compatibility between users and different groups? Or,
I think we should all go back to ASCII text. That would just take care of all of it. Well,
back in the good old days.
Back in the good old days. We had TXTs and we liked it. If you enjoyed this clip, be sure to check out the Untitled Linux Show. You can find us in your favorite podcasting app or subscribe to our YouTube channel down in the links below. See you there.